Nina Shea is up next, but first, some news. On Wednesday evening, President Trump spoke to faith leaders at a White House dinner in honor of the National Day of Prayer. He paid respects to Jewish Americans killed and wounded at last week's synagogue shooting in California, the victims of attacks in Sri Lanka on Easter Sunday, and Muslims in New Zealand last month. He also cited the burning of 3 black churches in Louisiana and last year's shooting at a Pittsburgh synagogue. The president had this to say.
Tonight we break bread together, united by our love of God, and we renew our resolve to protect the sacred freedom of religion, all of us. Violence and terrorism against people of all faiths must end, and it must end now.
Joining me now with analysis is the director of the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute, Nina Shea. Nina, thanks for being back.
Great to be back.
Let's talk about this shooting, the second attack on a synagogue in the U.S. To what do you attribute this rise in anti-Semitism?
Yeah, well, it comes from different sources, Raymond, and we're seeing it. It's unusual for the United States at this period in our history to see this. So this is a lone wolf from a conservative background, a churchgoer, from a Boy Scout, conservative. We don't know enough about it, but the government has to protect synagogues. There has to be protection to stop it. There are, in other countries, we're seeing, and even here, we're seeing radical Islamists attacking synagogues as well.
Right.
That was true in France, and it's true here. In the last 4 months, the FBI have picked up and intercepted and thwarted 2 attacks on synagogues by extremists linked to ISIS or inspired by ISIS here in this country. So one in Ohio, one in California. Yeah.
So it's the ideology that is radicalizing these people here.
Yes.
And provoking them to these acts.
There is different ideologies involved, but it's and we're seeing anti-Semitism in the left as well, the far left. Not even progressive left, I should say. You see it with Representative Omar's statements.
Right.
And the New York Times ran a
cartoon
of Israel represented by their prime minister with as a dog with the Star of David around the dog collar. That's a sacred image to Jews.
Outrageous. It's an outrageous image. I want to talk about the Christian persecution that we're seeing rise as well. We had 6 people killed in Burkina Faso, which is in Western Africa.
Yeah.
Then we, of course, the 200 plus killed in Sri Lanka. To what do you attribute this targeting of Christians all around the world?
Yeah, well, again, it's different from place to place because you're seeing targeting of churches in France and other places.
Right.
But those particular cases in Sri Lanka and Burkina Faso, it's Islamic extremism again. It's ISIS that's directing it, that's advising it in those places. And it's, again, a failure of the government to protect these houses of worship.
What can the U.S. government do to protect these minority groups, and particularly these houses of worship, not only here but around the world?
Yeah, well, the U.S. has been giving intelligence to the government of Sri Lanka, and they failed to act on it. And they said it's going to be prominent Christian churches, and it's a very small population. There's 7% of the population. There aren't that many Catholic churches there, and they got them, and they targeted them. There was no steps taken by the governments there. But we can train, we can share intelligence, and we have to, here at home, ensure there's proper training of the congregations and the rabbis, and even some protection maybe by the government is warranted in certain neighborhoods.
Nina, we've been covering this for years, and though we see the Sri Lankan, example, and kind of people are focused on it, in Africa, this is almost routine. It's a weekly occurrence. I read a report with an interview with a Nigerian archbishop who's saying they're killing our people like chickens in northern Nigeria.
Yes.
What is happening there, and why aren't we hearing more about it?
Yes, this is a northern and to a certain extent central Nigeria. Nigeria is half a Christian and half Muslim. And this area, these are radical Muslims, again, or extremists. Boko Haram is a terror group that has pledged allegiance to ISIS. And they have attacked about 900 churches, according to some sources, in Nigeria, and then it's filled with worshipers. Again, on Christmas, the Catholic Church, St. Teresa was attacked one year. There are other major holy days filled with worshipers, and then there's also community people from the Fulani herdsmen who are also been radicalized, and they express their desire for land and a better lifestyle by killing Christians and taking it. But I have talked to, Raymond, I have talked to Protestant pastors who were shot in the head. The one survived. He came and talked to me, showed me his X-ray of his shattered skull, and for refusing to convert to Islam when the Boko Haram ISIS equivalent broke into his home and went to every one of his neighbors and killed them all. So it's very ruthless there. And we know we have Christian slaves, girls taken into slavery and refused to convert. So they said, forget it. She's not leaving. She's going to be a slave for the rest of her life.
It's outrageous. It really, it's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
And I think that's part of the reason why people just ignore it. They put it aside, and they think, oh, it's Africa. But
and Nigeria,
are these lives less important than other places?
No, and this government is Nigeria is a democracy. It's
right.
Elected. They have a responsibility. That's really the first responsibility of any government is to protect their own citizens, all their citizens, especially those who are being targeted like this.
Hudson Institute, your colleagues have come up with some stats that I find shocking. 345 Christians are killed for faith-based reasons each month around the world. 100 churches or Christian buildings are burned or vandalized each month. Now, you recently wrote a piece in the National Catholic Register about the ongoing attacks, vandalization of French churches, Catholic churches for the most part. What's driving this? Well,
there's a range of ideologies behind it. They're attacked mainly because, they're attacked because they're unprotected, but beyond that, they're attacked because of Catholic teachings that are, or the symbol of Western civilization that these churches symbolize, represent, or Christianity. And so they're attacked by a range of anarchists, social libertarians, Satanists, a small Satan community, radical Islam, again, remember the priest who had his throat slit on the Father Hama, on the altar in Normandy a couple of years ago. But there are hundreds of churches that have been set afire, set aflame, or looted or vandalized, and we know who they are. The French government is not very good about arresting and apprehending and prosecuting these people at all, and they don't investigate it. But they
are they afraid to figure out who did it?
They're afraid to confront that, and but we have a clue because they leave behind slogans graffitied onto the walls of these ancient cathedrals and churches, and it's blessed abortion is one slogan, or homophobe, calling the priest a homophobe. I mean, it's just horrible desecration, and especially of the Blessed Sacrament. Yeah. So and it's. It's hundreds of churches again, and there's a great a Christian observatory in Europe based in Vienna that tracks all this, observatory on discrimination against Christians. And
I need to talk about China for a moment, which we've talked about before. Such heinous attacks, death, arresting of people for their faith, particularly Catholics. There was the president has been engaged with China on a trade deal.
Yes.
Human rights and religious rights are not surfacing in those talks, apparently, reportedly.
Then they
Why
should
not?
Be. They should be. This is, again, China is a different category altogether from what we were just talking about, because then it's not just passive resistance or
or individuals. This is state sanctioned.
This is state doing it. They're blowing up the churches, not filled with worshipers, but they're destroying churches actively. They're arresting and brainwashing and monitoring, with a high-tech surveillance of Christians, saying that banning all minors under the age of 18 from entering a church.
Outrageous.
Saying seniors can't get their pensions if they go to church. So there's whole categories of people that are being, prevented from having their right to religious freedom. Yeah, and we didn't raise this as we used to during the Soviet period. We used to raise it with the Soviet Union, the human rights, the religious freedom, along with trade, along with defense negotiations, and we need to do that.
Yeah, they need to be bundled.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't get any. You don't get any relief from them.
No.
The United States International Religious Freedom Commission, in their recent report, one of the commissioners writes that the Vatican-China deal is one of the most alarming incidents as it relates to religious freedom in the entire year. They say the Vatican has a hand in this, and they should find a way to fix what's happening to their religious adherents in China. Do you agree?
Well, it's hard to say what is the worst. There have been so many atrocities, but certainly I was opposed to this deal. I said it was worse than we even thought it was once it was implemented and became clear that there was no reciprocity. The government of China has not recognized any of the underground bishops.
No.
And
they're now picking bishops.
And now they're picking bishops, and they're saying, that they're going to tamper with ideology as well, with the church teachings, the substance of what we believe, because they want President Xi's teachings to replace. In fact, his photograph has replaced the portrait of Jesus Christ in some of the churches.
Gosh.
Yeah, so it's going to be a church, a Catholic church that is forced to rally around the Communist Party, and that's going to be, they're going to be used as a soft power instrument for the communist government of China, and that's very frightening.
Unbelievable. Christian refugees are down 47% since 2016. To what do you attribute that? I know there's been a clampdown on all refugees for national security reasons, purportedly. I thought there was going to be a preference for Christian refugees.
Well, that was a misstatement of what eventually emerged from the immigration policy of the Trump administration. It was supposed to be the Christians were going to be put on equal footing.
Right.
And, I think that there could be many more refugees brought in who are Christian because of the persecution in certain countries. But the persecution has gone down in certain places where ISIS has been, the caliphate has been destroyed. So that was a large generator of refugees. Today, Nigeria is a large generator of refugees. Somalia, there's still some Christians there. You have Asia Bibi. She's
update us on Asia Bibi, who was in Pakistan. They claim she's going to be released. When? The Prime Minister said she's going to be released.
Yeah, I last saw that it was going to be in mid-May. So, we're watching, but I think that the United States could be doing a lot more to put diplomatic pressure on that government. I know another government has given her asylum. We did not step forward and do that, but another government has. I know that there's been, transportation arranged for her to leave by another source. But she needs to, she's been mistreated and denied justice for so long, Raymond. You know that she was on, because you tracked it, 9 years on death row for something that she didn't do. She was acquitted of all the
and then they were feared. They said if we free her, she'll die. They'll kill her. So, so we keep her.
So she's under house arrest and has been since October. When she was released. When the Supreme Court of Pakistan, after 9 years, decided to acquit her, she's been still, for 6 months now.
Well, let's hope she quickly is released.
Yeah,
and gets.
thank you.
Do you know what's the home country? What's the country she'll go to?
I don't want to say.
Oh, you don't. Okay, I understand. We'll keep it quiet. The Iraq and Syrian refugees, many of them left. These Christians left Iraq and Syria because of ISIS. Now ISIS is gone. They're not returning home.
Right.
Why?
Well, the Nineveh plain, Raymond, it's a very serious situation, is being threatened now by another force, and that's Iran. Iran has taken over several towns. There are only a handful, or less than a dozen Christian towns in Nineveh plain, and one of them is Bataniya. And I was told by someone who was just there, an American observer, that the only living thing he saw there was a dog, that there were no Christians left in this town. Another town, Bartella, this is a town where it's now 80% Shia. This is a Shia Muslim place because Iran militias
Moved
are moved in, and because the Christians feel threatened by the Iranian militias, and that's why they don't resettle there. So well, I think that the United States has to take this into calculation when it's Iran policy. So I hope there will be something. They need to do that. Vice President Pence has been very, very solid about committing to save the Christian population that was threatened by genocide by ISIS. Let's don't forget that. This is genocide survivors that we're talking about. And these people, in many cases, want to go home. This is, they've been there for thousands of years. Their family, their patrimony is there, their religious patrimony. And they have to be helped with protection. Once again, it comes down to security and protection. There is no police force, no militia that protects them.
Nina Shea, as always, thank you so much for being here. You can follow Nina at the Center for Religious Freedom at the Hudson Institute. Go to hudson.org.